Thanks so much for joining me today. We are going to dive into the conversation in a moment. First, I wanted to remind you that the show notes and links mentioned on this podcast are on my website at lizasivekmarketing.com. That's Liza with a Z and Civic with an S. So, okay, let's get started.
Good morning, magicians. Hope everyone is well. I've got Rocky Lalvani with me today, and we're going to be talking to him about Profit First and a lot of good information. So, Rocky, why don't you start us off telling us a little bit about you, how you came to be doing what you're doing, and about your business?
So what I do now is I help business owners with their financials. I make sure that they are always profitable. I had a big aha moment a couple of years ago. I just assumed that business owners understood the business of business, that they knew their financials, that they understood what was going on. And I came to learn that most business owners aren't looking at their financials at all. And I'm like, how do you run a business without doing this? And then I realized they went into business to do what they loved. They didn't go in business to be accountants. And so it made sense why this was such a struggle for them. These are my natural talents. So back when I was in high school, which was a different, decade, generation, I don't know what the right word is.
We won't say. I was probably the same one.
Yeah. Personal computers were just coming to be. And there was a new program called VisiCalc, which was the first electronic spreadsheet. Mm-hmm. And I was teaching accountants while I was in high school how to go from paper ledger to these electronic spreadsheets. Like my life is run on spreadsheets. That's the way we do everything, whether it's the grocery list or Thanksgiving dinner or the business. Like everything's got a spreadsheet and it just makes life 10x easier. When I look at that, I see numbers. Numbers tell me stories. Stories help me to help people make wiser decisions. I finally realized I had a skill set that had value. So then I started my business and that's what I do. Of course, I had to market myself and figure out that whole part.
Yeah. And that's the part where numbers tell me a story. As I often say with my friends and my clients, I'm not a math person. Math and I are not friends. However, I love the end result of a report. Those numbers are so exciting to me because it's exactly what you just said. You hit the nail on the head. They tell you a story. They tell you where to go next. They tell you what you're doing right and wrong. And I love that about reports. Hate math, love reports, because that's what tells you whether it's your profit or your marketing. And a lot of business owners, just as you said, don't want to focus on that. They would like to outsource that at some point or have someone else do it. But you have to know, one, so you're not getting cheated by anybody. And two, so that you're making the right business decisions. And business owners, as you said, are passionate. So I find that very true.
So for your side, what we actually do is we look at number of leads. What's the conversion rate? How many new customers? How many customers did we originally have? So how many of the customers we had do we keep? And then we know our total customer base. How often do they buy? And that gives us the total number of transactions. And then we look at, well, what's an average transaction value? And that tells us our revenue, right? And
and a bunch of people just zoned out when you got to transaction, right? A bunch of people just like went, oh God, okay. So what you're saying is so true, because that first half is what I try to tell people. Impressions are not customers. Visitors are not customers until they convert. And when you talk about convert, if people who are listening don't know, that means they actually gave you their name and email. That means they actually bought something. They've converted to being a lead or converted to being a customer. And that is, as Rocky is saying, is where you get your profit. And so the first part is me and the second part is Rocky. So knowing that report, you got to look at your reports, you got to look at your marketing. And I know it's overwhelming, and a good marketing person will put them in layman's terms for you, but this is so important, so important. I'm glad you brought this up. So tell us a little bit about how you get people there when they just zone out the minute you get to transaction.
So I don't use words that tell what I do. I talk about their problems. Mm-hmm. And I talk about how I solve their problems. So you said people zone out. It's worse than zone out. And I know, so you're a creative, right? Would that be appropriate?
I'm a creative as marketing, and as I often say, my not so secret identity is also amateur artist. So yeah, usually artists, it's like herding cats with these things. I have a slightly more business mind. Right.
That's fine. And so I always say creatives and money are like oil and water. They just don't go together. So I talk in those words to say that's the problem that I solve. I help creatives or people who are like that figure out their financials in a way that they can understand. Because most creatives, if you say, hey, let's go look at your financials, they'll be like, can I go cry and curl up in a ball? Right? See, you're laughing because you know it's true.
It's true. It's funny because it's true. And it was what I used to do all the time. And it's still a struggle for me. But I do it. I look at it because if you don't, oh, what a pile of mess you get if you don't look at that.
And so what I do is I offload that for people, and I will look at it and I will tell you what's going on. And then I'll ask you questions so that you can make wiser decisions without ever having to look at numbers. And everyone's got
there's the magic I promised you. You never have to look at numbers. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it's true. Well, you see the book back there, Accounting for the Number Phobic. We talk in your language. Oh
my gosh, send me a copy of that. Okay, number phobic. Oh my goodness. That's very important. And when people talk about Google Ads and Google Analytics, because I'm Google Analytics certified, and that's a lot. It's a lot of numbers. It's so different than when you talked about starting with VisiCalc. I started with Google Analytics being one page. That was it, and the biggest thing I had to worry about was that we had something like 3,500 keywords that I was trying to track every day. But it's completely different now. And that's why marketing needs to also talk to accountants and look at numbers, because it's important. And marketing return on investment is so hard to track and often ends up in the sales department instead of the marketing department. So you need to know your reports. You need to know what's working.
So true.
So true. So tell me a little bit about what you do to educate people on this, as far as, okay, I know you don't want to look at the numbers. I know you're curled up in a ball. So how do you get them out of that fetal position?
So I don't talk in those, I talk in a language that they understand. And I also created my marketing system in a way that's enjoyable for me. So, we have this joke amongst podcasters. Why'd you start a podcast? Because I can't write. Right. So
that's what I said. Yes.
If you want me to write blog posts and create content and create long form articles, nothing is going to get done. But if you want me to get behind a microphone and just teach and talk and share, I'm going to create amazing amounts of content. So number one, I learned, okay, this is the way I work. So I'm going to create content in a way that's comfortable for me, that I enjoy doing it. And basically what I've done is I've used my podcast to teach people, which means I'm not push marketing. I'm not saying, here's an email, read. I'm saying, here's some valuable information. If you enjoy it, listen to the next episode. Go check out my information. And generally what will happen is people will listen to me for 6, 9, 12 months. And then one day they show up on my calendar. And they're ready to do business because they know, like, and trust me. They feel like I'm their friend because I've been in their ears forever. I have no idea who they are, though, which is kind of scary. They're like, we know all about you and your family and the this and the that and your little quirks. And I'm like, who are you? But it works.
Yes, it does. And it's when you're constantly in their ear, it's like being an actor in a show where they're in their living room. People think they feel like they know you. And I like that. That means that something is working. I always joke, very similar, because I can write. I write blog posts and long form content and copy all week. So asking me to write another blog post about me, I would rather talk. Let me just brain dump on you in the podcast, dude. It's fine. So that's very similar. And I think you're right that people don't need to blog if they can podcast. It's a lot easier to do. And everyone should be starting a podcast for your company. Hate to break it to you guys. So tell me a little bit about how you came to, so you were doing this were you an accountant? What were you doing before? Exactly.
180 degrees. I was actually in sales in the pharma industry. So I was the only sales rep who could actually look at the reports and tell you why you weren't hitting goal, which customer was causing the problem and where they were off and why that was occurring. And so I knew, like, I would always go to the reports and read them and say, okay, this is what's going on. The problem is the reports they would send us, like, people would be like, well, I did this and the reports say that, but my commission check says this. Well, because the reports aren't tied to your commission check. So I would actually take the reports, convert them, and make it understandable for the sales rep to say, if I do this over here, then my commission check will go up.
And that's what salespeople want to hear. My commission check will go up. And then they'll say, wait, what did you just say before that? Absolutely. Yes.
And they don't look at their numbers either.
So Dog is here. He's the VP of security, and he often interrupts our podcast. So pardon me for him, but he's checking out the backyard right now. Okay, so maybe we'll get an appearance by the corgi too, because once Kumba starts barking, Duke Skywalker has to help. All right, so as I always tell people, they're in my branding because I don't really have a choice. They just come in and show up. So on your website, you talk about how profit is often looked at as a leftover, and you want them to look at it as something you start with and then go to expenses. So tell us a little bit about how you do that.
So, and this is all based on the book Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. Mike was a serial entrepreneur, made a lot of money, sold his business, thought he was the smartest man in the world. And a couple of years later, they're coming to take the car and the keys to the house. And he's like, wow, I really screwed up. He said, we've got to have a better way. And the problem is the accountants have formulas that are based on accounting and they're based on tax returns. So the government says, and the accounting says, sales minus expenses equals profit, and we're going to tax your profit. But where does that leave profit? It's a leftover. It's something that most business owners don't find out until tax time, when they sit down with their accountant and they go, congratulations, you were profitable, and here's how much you owe. And most people go, where is that money? And how am I supposed to pay that tax bill? Right? There's got to be a better way. And so what we basically do is we change the equation from sales minus expenses equals profit to sales minus profit equals expenses. You went into business to make a profit and to be a profitable business. You should take your profit first. You should pay yourself first. And what this is basically a cash flow system. It's designed around the envelope system. So you may have heard of the envelope system from the old days, or maybe Dave Ramsey or one of the things. You got your money, and then you had all these envelopes, and each envelope had a purpose: rent, groceries, utilities, and you put the money in that envelope. And when you ran out of that envelope, you stopped spending until more money came in. So it kind of constrained you. And that's basically what we do here. The money comes into your account. We set aside your profit. We set aside your owner's pay, because most owners don't pay themselves until last, which is wrong. If you're not financially strong, you're going to freak out all your employees. So you've got to pay yourself first. And then we put money aside for taxes. So when the accountant says you have a tax bill, you go, oh, I hate taxes. By the way, there's enough in my account to stroke a check. So life goes on. And then you have what's left for your operating expenses, and you truly don't overspend then, because you know what's in there. Most business owners look at their bank balance. They don't look at their financial reports. This system leverages that strength. You look at your operating expense account and go, I don't have money. I can't spend. And so it's all based on Parkinson's law. Parkinson's law says we will use up all the resources in our business, whether it's time and money. So somebody comes to you and says, I want to start a marketing program. Your question is, well, what's your budget? And how long till you need this result delivered? They tell you, well, my budget's 100,000 and I want to start in 3 months. I guarantee you, you will spend 100,000 and it will start in 3 months. If you come to someone and say, hey, my budget's 10 grand and I need something out next week, they will find a way to do it for 10 grand and be out next week. So the second part of this rule is the 80-20 rule, which everyone knows. 20% of your results, 20% of what you do produces 80% of your results. which means 40% of what you do produces 96% of your results, which means 60% of what you do is basically worthless. So let's stop wasting our time and money on worthless, putting out fires and running around like chickens with our heads cut off. And let's focus on what's important. And let's use the least amount of time and effort to get it done. So I'll tell my clients, hey, can we lower your sales? And they look at me like I'm nuts. I'm like, no. Understand, my goal is that you work half as much and you make twice as much.
Which is the magic formula.
Which is the magic formula. So let's say you're a business owner and this year you made a profit of $100,000. The standard answer is, okay, I had $1 million in revenue. I made $100,000. I want to make 200,000 next year. So now I need 2 million in revenue. Oh my God, how am I going to get $2 million in revenue? Well, we got to market. We got to sell. We got to do this. He goes, stop. What if we instead just said, hey, you got $1 million in revenue. You got $100,000 in profit. Let's just raise prices 10% and see what happens. All of a sudden, your profit went from 100,000 to 200,000, and you didn't work any harder. Then I say, hey, what if we could cut costs by 10 or 11%? Because we're all wasting money on stuff that we got all these softwares we don't even know we're using. We're paying for licenses for stuff that nobody does, or we stop.
Boy, isn't that the truth? Yeah.
Isn't that the truth, right?
Isn't that the truth? Yeah.
All you got to do is go through all your bills, cut your spending by 10, 11%. And what did we just do? We took our $1 million business from 100,000 to 300,000, and we didn't work any harder. That is the magic formula. And
it's actually a realistic one. Yeah, it's a realistic one.
It's a realistic formula because most business owners are afraid to raise prices. All you got to do is say, hey, we are providing all this value. Look at the return we did with your marketing. We think that's worth another 10%. And if you're doing it right, business owners are, well, it's actually worth 20% more. So I'm happy going to pay you 10%. And if you pay attention to where your money is flowing and just stop wasting it, you'll be able to do that. And that's essentially what I help people do. And you can do it yourself. You don't need me.
No, we don't need you, but we'd like to, have you there to remind us anyway, right? Because that's important, because we forget, we get off that path of, we get all gung-ho and say, we're going to go look for everything. But as business owners, that seems like such a time suck. That seems like something we don't want to put a lot of time into because we're are already, as you said, in panic mode if we're not doing that. So if we're constantly in panic mode and we're constantly putting out fires, and it's something I've seen in small businesses I've worked in, if you're reactive, not proactive, it's very hard to shift to proactive because you're already trying to fix the problems and saying, well, I'm going to stop for a little while and shift. It's just something you can't even imagine doing. And what you're saying is as simple as, how do you lose weight? Eat less, work out more. What? I can't do that.
So
it's as simple as that.
We have the magic formula. We believe eat more and lose weight.
Is there ice cream involved? Because I'm on board then.
Yes. Yeah. Ice cream. Of course you can eat ice cream and lose weight. You just have to know how to sequence everything. So it's like baking a cake, right? There's a recipe for baking a cake. What if I took all the ingredients for baking a cake and I did them out of order? What would you end up with? Like, let's say I took the egg and I cracked it and I put it in there and then I covered it with frosting and then I baked it. And then I took it out and threw some flour and water in there. That wouldn't be a good cake. You had
absolutely not
everything right, all the perfect ingredients, but you screwed up the order. It's the same thing in business. You've got to get the order right and you will have success. But too often we try to take shortcuts or we don't follow the process. And so I believe you can eat ice cream and bacon and lose weight. I have.
I like that. I like that. And I'm going to just tell everyone that when I buy more ice cream today. It is Independence Day weekend as we record this, so there will be ice cream, just so we all know. At least for me. So it's raining, so there'll be no fireworks. So we're going to go with sprinkles instead. What do you say? So we have the order. We're going to change our order. We're going to stop being in panic. We're going to look at our reports. That's a lot. Again, you've got people going back into the fetal position saying, you just told me to make a lot of changes that seem very uncomfortable. And I think I'm just going to go back into the corner under my desk now and stop listening to you. So, let's reiterate how much easier your life will be if you make these changes. And if you do them in baby steps, or if you do them all at once, either way, you're making that change. So what do you suggest?
I'm going to give you the smallest, easiest baby step. Okay. I want you to go open up one bank account. And every month, I want to take 1% of your sales and put it in that bank account. That's it. Don't look at your financial reports. Don't look at anything. Right? Don't talk to your accountant. Don't talk to your bookkeeper. Just open up one bank account and every month put 1% of your sales in it. And after 3 months, look at it and see how much money you have. And then if everything is going well, double it. Put 2% in that account and just keep going about life. And you will be shocked at how over time you will start to build wealth and you'll start to go, I'm starting to build some money here. Maybe I should take that next step and dig a little bit deeper. So that's all. Easy first step.
And when you say that, when you think about a very low interest rate on a savings account or any kind of bank account these days, putting aside just 2% of your profits already makes you more money. Just moving it over that you didn't see before if you were doing that spend everything that you have.
Mm-hmm. Everyone does.
Putting it first. Yeah. It's paying yourself first. It's what they tell you when they teach you how to budget and savings. Pay yourself first. And business owners, you're right, do not do that. I've been advised everything from give yourself just enough so that you feel like you're making something, so that you can go buy one thing a month, or invest it all back and just work a second job, which, is a bad idea all around. And the third is, well, just write yourself a what do they call it? There's a certain check, and I forgot, it's gone right out of my head now. So you can tell me where you just write yourself a check as you need it out of your bank account and so out of your company budget. And as an owner, and none of those are what you're saying. None of those are what you're saying to do. You're saying pay yourself first, pay your business first, and decide where your profits are going to be before you go to your expenses.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I love this. How do you help people do it directly? Because I think after this, they are going to want to talk to you because this is revolutionary. Revolutionary, I tell you. We don't think this way as business owners.
So basically, I do everything that we just talked about. And I sit down with you and ask you questions about your business and how things are going. And I just help you make those little changes. And I'm going to tell you, this is not overnight success. Don't think you're going to come to me and tomorrow life is going to be better. We tell people it took you a long time to get here. It's probably going to take you 2 to 3 years to get from where you are to where you truly want to be. This is a journey and it takes time. We can't change all these levers overnight, right? They're little teeny baby steps, and we just keep making baby steps into the right direction. And I hold your hand so that it's easy. And whenever you've got stuff that you want to cry over, you just hand it to me. And I go, okay, things are good. Things are bad. Here's what you need to do to change. Here's your action steps for the month. Can you handle those 2-3 tasks? Yes. Have a nice day. Go do it. We work on your business instead of in your business.
Okay. So it's almost like you're a financial business coach. You're dealing with the financial systems and helping them through it.
Yeah. So I call myself the chief profitability officer. My job is to make you profitable. Somebody in your company should.
You should. Now, if you added 2 more C words at the beginning, I could call you C3PO and that would be fun. But that's just because I'm a geek. So I think that is a wonderful way to look at it because it's not scary. It's not scary anymore. And it sounds like you hold somebody's hand and then they're like, okay, fly, be free, little bird. You understand now how to handle your money and not be afraid of it, not Correct. Be worried and panicked about it.
And if you think about it, your accountant doesn't do this because your accountant's all about compliance, right? They're not sitting there. That's wonderful. But who's sitting there saying to you, hey, did you know if you make these couple of changes, you can increase your profit margin by 12%? or you can make more money. And that's not what they do, unfortunately. They're more about doing your tax return. And your bookkeeper is just making sure everything's in the right place so that the accountant doesn't yell at you. But who's helping you grow and be profitable?
I love that. That is fantastic. You were the financial therapist, and I think a lot of us need that. A lot of us were raised not to talk about money, not to think about money, not to worry about money. A lot of different wrong ways of thinking about money. So this is wonderful, wonderful information. I have really enjoyed this conversation. Anything you want to leave us with? You want to tell us how to find you?
So the first thing I want to leave you with is, if you enjoyed this podcast, would you please go rate it for Liza and give her some love? It's a lonely world in podcasting. We don't hear from you. So it will help the show get out and help more people. So number one, if you can do that. As for me, if you'd like to find me, my main website is profitcomesfirst.com. If you go to profitcomesfirst.com, if you want to check out the book before you buy it, I'll give you 2 free chapters along with some tools. If you prefer to listen like you're listening now, check out my podcast, Profit Answer Man. You can find the links there. And if you want to chat with me, get on my calendar. I help people, and there's no pressure in sales. I don't believe in competition. If you listen to the podcast, you'll hear all my competitors on the show. I bring them on because whoever is the right person to help you is the one I want to find for you.
That is exactly my outlook. So that's great. And thank you for asking them to comment and rate the podcast, because we do need that. People listen in the car and then that's it. Go back and rate me, for goodness sakes, preferably positively. And let's definitely talk again, because I think there's a lot more to unpack here. There's a lot more topics. And I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And go listen to his podcast and go check out profitcomesfirst.com and stop being afraid of your money.
Wow, another fantastic conversation done. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Don't forget that all the links mentioned will be in the show notes at lizasivekmarketing.com. And while you're there, if you're a business owner whose marketing is on life support, check out the Your Virtual Marketing Department offer and take the Marketing Health Report quiz for free. For less than the cost of a full-time hire, we can take your marketing from frustrating to lead generating with an entire marketing team. So check that out, and I'll see you next time.
You've been listening to Marketing Myths and Magic, part of the Xvadio Podcast Network. You can find us at xvadio.com/podcasts, as well as the Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and wherever you find podcasts.